Coming up on BYU Basketball with Mark Pope, the Cougars complete their season series with Gonzaga and now wait to see how the stretch run schedule unfolds. We'll talk it up with the coach and Connor Harding next.
This is BYU Basketball with Mark Pope, presented by Siegfried and Jensen. And now, your host, the voice of the Cougars, Greg Wrubell.
Cougar Nation, we welcome you back inside the BYU Broadcasting Building in Provo for another edition of BYU Basketball with Mark Pope, hashtag Pope Show on Twitter. Glad you're with us for another hour of inside stuff on Cougar Hoops. Coming up on tonight's show, we will look back at last week's win at Portland and last night's game with number one Gonzaga. Tonight's Cougar Q&A is senior guard Alex Barcello. Deep Blue tonight featuring Gideon Geroge, while Connor Harding will join us live from the BYU Basketball Annex later on in the show. Let's start the show by saying hello to head coach Mark Pope. Hello, head coach Mark Pope.
How you doing, brother?
I'm great. It's always good to be with you.
Are we allowed to say that we're in a new studio?
We can let people know that. Yeah.
We're in Studio B.
We're in Studio A.
We're in Studio A.
Yeah.
We used to be in Studio C.
But as far as the viewer's concerned, can they tell the difference? They cannot.
You still look spectacular.
The magic of television, you equally. Yeah.
Okay. So I am constantly in awe of how professional you are and just like, but just the way you phrase that, we're going to take a look back at the win last week against Portland and the game against the number one Zags. Genius!
Yeah.
I love it, man. I love it. I'm so grateful.
Well, you know, it's accurate, though. Is it not accurate?
It is accurate. It is 100% accurate.
Yeah. Two games for us to review on tonight's show, as Coach mentions. The one on the road and the one at home. We start in the Pacific Northwest with what was supposed to be the second game of a two-game road swing last week. It ended up being a one-off in Portland. Highlights and stats presented here by Intermountain Healthcare. This was the win. This was the win at Portland. BYU and Portland at the Childs Center on a misty, gray day in Portland.
We talked about this, a couple shows ago, about my nightmares about Bobby Sharp.
Yes.
Bobby Sharp was not in the building.
He was not walking through that door.
I was very grateful for that, and it was actually a really interesting road trip because we had done a full prep on San Diego. We're driving, actually pulling into the gym for shoot-around that morning, and we got word that the game was canceled. And so it turned into a 4-day road trip for one game. And it always makes you nervous when your game prep changes. But our guys responded in an unbelievable fashion, had a really convincing win.
Ended up being a special game. Could you speak just really briefly as we watch these highlights to the mental challenge of getting ready for games that don't get played and then switching the gear to get ready for the next one? Yeah,
it's actually a heavy load. I know it might be hard to understand, but as you see Caleb Lohner going to work, his just confidence is growing and growing and growing. So is Gideon Geroge. They both had another set of breakout performances in this game. But it's a real challenge because you kind of get yourself to an emotionally heightened place as well as kind of doing all the homework and the on-court prep, kind of digesting all the information from a scout. And then it's just taken away from you. And you don't get the emotional kind of finality of actually playing the game. So it's a different situation. Hopefully we don't face it too many more times.
All the emotions were positive here in Portland as BYU kept pulling away in this one. By the time it was all over, BYU had its largest away victory margin in the Division I era at 105-60, a 45-point win over the Portland Pilots, taking that 4-day trip and making it pay off in the end.
Yeah, I was really proud of our guys' focus. And to Portland's credit, they tried to guard us a bunch of different ways, and they're one of the few teams that's really made an effort to zone us a little bit. And we've had unbelievable success against zones this year, and our offensive efficiency and points per possession is really high, and it continued to be really high in this game as the guys really played with force and shared the ball and pushed it in transition. They had a really terrific performance all around, not only on the offensive but the defensive side of the ball.
And it was a quad 4 game for BYU, and so it didn't really help the strength of schedule too much that night. But the way you played, your metrics got a nice boost even in a quad 4 situation.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's an interesting challenge right now with the metrics, both in KenPom and in the net, and most of the metrics. It's not so heavily weighted on the score differential at the end of the game, but it's weighted heavily on your offensive and defensive efficiency, which is a backdoor way to talk about the score differential. And these numbers really matter. They really matter in your seeding, and they matter going forward. And so you have to play the best basketball you can play for 40 minutes and be the most effective you can to give your team a chance to kind of compete in the metrics. And the guys certainly did that on the road against Portland.
And we'll get to Gonzaga in a bit, but conversely, because of how good Gonzaga was, when you hold them to a 1.08, whatever it was, that's a good result against a team of that caliber.
Yeah, I mean, it's just so painful to talk about, isn't it? Because it's about winning and losing, and that's what it should be. But just like I said, because of the metrics we deal with, all those other things matter. You can't let them be a distraction from winning and losing, because ultimately that's what matters the most. But as a second tier, really important factor, all these things matter, and it's something you take in consideration, of course, every time you go compete.
And, 45-point wins on the road are a rarity. The fact that it never happened, at BYU in the Division I era speaks to just how unusual it is to just go put it on someone like that.
Yeah, and you know how greedy I am about, claiming history.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, man. I love it. I love the fact our guys have laid claim to several different things this year in terms of kind of all-time history at BYU. And so the fact that they get to put that in their pocket, too, I think is really special. I think it's, as an athlete, again, secondary to winning and secondary to achieving your goals through the course of a season, these things that you pick up along the way that you got to get to pin your team's name in the record books are pretty special. And our guys deserved it because they had to earn it for sure. A hungry Portland team, a team that was very capable of scoring the ball, I think scored 88 against Gonzaga at home. And a team that had given us problems in the first half here. And after a really weird road trip and a weird week, the guys came prepared and played great.
I know we have to get to Gonzaga here in a second, but just a quick word about the Gideon Geroge breakout we saw at Portland with his first start resulting in 19 and 13. No turnovers, 3 assists, all-around great game.
Yeah, he was absolutely terrific. And, I mean, you get a sense, like everybody, it's not hard to see the potential that he has. And us finding the right, best positions to put him in where he can perform on the positive side of things is really important. And he stepped up and played. It was his first start of his Division I college career, and he certainly came through and played really, really well. I'm super proud of him. And we're going to see bigger and bigger things as we move forward with Gideon Geroge and Caleb Lohner. And then, we had so many great performances by so many different guys in that game.
Gideon's second career start came last night against number 1 Gonzaga. The Zags in town to take on BYU. 9th time all-time BYU taking on a number 1 team. And 5 of the 9 after last night were against a conference colleague, the Gonzaga Bulldogs. And as was the case in Spokane, Coach, they got off to a strong start.
Yeah, they really did. They started small, which I don't know. They hadn't done recently. I don't know if they've done it all season. And they started small with a purpose. They were going to get out and run, and we had a tough time responding. We turned the ball over 3 out of the first 4 possessions and 5 out of the first 7, and it's tough. And our guys were trying. I think they came in with a decent mindset and a combination of the Zags' length and their pace, and it just took us a minute to kind of find our way into the game.
Cougs hung around in this one. Again, it was the early double-digit deficit, but there were points in the game when it did get to single digits for you.
I was really proud of our guys' fight. There were a lot of moments where, we could have just packed it in and said, hey, this is not really our night, and they refused to do that. And so I was really proud of that. We had a couple stretches where we just didn't have the right kind of spirit and energy, but for the most part, the guys really stuck together and fought, and I was proud of that.
Jalen Suggs, highest-ranked high school recruit ever to commit to Gonzaga, had a great game and a really nice second half. Gideon Geroge has hit threes, I think, in 5 of his last 6 games now. It's a part of his game. Alex Barcello really looking for a shot last night. Yeah,
Alex was really aggressive, and we needed him to be even more than his shot. I thought his driving lines were incredibly physical and really, really effective, and he purchased a lot of space and time, and kind of Gonzaga was in a St. Mary's cover, a retreating kind of ball screen defense for most of the night, and so that ended up in him getting a bunch of kind of pull-up 2s and floaters, and he was able to convert on a lot of them. The game felt like it was slipping away. We were down 21, and the guys made a nice run and kind of pulled it back to within fighting distance at 10, and then we just couldn't kind of get over the 10-point hump. But we have better basketball in us. We can play better. I thought our performance was better here than it was in Spokane, and I think, hopefully we get one more chance at the Zags. We'll have to earn it, but hopefully get one more chance to them in whatever exists of a conference tournament, and we can play better than we did here.
So thanks to a couple of free throws in the final 6 seconds, Gonzaga wins by 11, making it 16 straight wins by double digits for the Zags. It was a 9-point game until the closing seconds. It ended up being 11. It's a trivial thing, but they have the longest streak for a number one team of consecutive wins by 10 or more points since that 1990-91 UNLV team.
Yep. It's so frustrating. I mean, it's every single time we turn around, the Zags have another streak that we got to find out and find a way to break. And they're an incredibly talented team, and they come at you with so many different weapons. And obviously they built a great program, and Huey does an unbelievable job coaching them, and we got to find answers.
We see the turnover number there, 16 up in Spokane, 19 last night, and the points off of turnovers ended up being decisive, Coach. Over the 2 games, Zags were plus 35 in the points off of turnovers.
Yeah, 19 turnovers, and especially to start the game the way we did. I mean, once we kind of caught our balance, we felt like we'd kind of go toe-to-toe with them, but when you just turn over the ball the way we did in the first, and it was everybody. I mean, it was, we just had some miscues, random things like our second possession of the game is just a 2-man game handoff that we've done 1,000 times, and somehow the ball ends up slipping through Alex's hands and hitting him in the head and bouncing off us and down the other end. And, a 2-man game with Brandon Averett and Matt Harms rolling hard where we choose a bounce pass instead of throwing it over the top, which is what we do normally. And, Gideon Geroge gets called for the travel early, which on film it doesn't look like it's a travel. It just looks really awkward, but it's a 1-2 step shot. And, it just kind of was, it was just little areas of the game that we just have to be more solid and more disciplined. Now, credit the Zags with a lot of that. I mean, they're long and they're athletic, and they put some pressure on you in all kinds of different ways, and we just need to respond better. I think we made some progress, not enough to get what we wanted, but we're growing every day, and we certainly learned a ton from that game, as my guys would verify after our 2-hour film session today before practice.
How did your approach to the game change? Because I think after the first game you mentioned, I would probably do some things differently in the way I built it up. How did you change it this time around?
So we wanted to be way more aggressive in transition. We wanted to really push the ball harder. We kind of refined some of our ball screen defense coverage, and we started a very different lineup, a very different feel lineup, actually, as well as they did as well. Mm-hmm. And so both teams made adjustments to try and attack that. We tried to shore up some things. They had kind of slowed us down. We have a flow. We call it a flow where we get to in kind of our continuity offense, and they kind of jumped out to an Aggie deny, a switching Aggie deny, and that has slowed us down at Gonzaga. So we worked on some ways changing that. We went from really heavy kind of side ball actions to more at the middle of the floor, which comes with positives and negatives. And fortunately, our guards did an unbelievable job with really forceful driving lines. So, there's 100 adjustments that you make trying to figure things out, and they just didn't work quite well enough for us.
Last night's game was BYU's 20th game of the season, which takes us to our feature Inside the Numbers, presented by Mountain America Credit Union. So how many teams have actually played 20 and won at least 15? Well, only 10. BYU is one of 10 teams right now that have played at least 20 games and won at least 15 of them, Coach. And in this season, as we all know, just getting the games played is a victory in and of itself. And then to win as many as you have, 75% of your games put you in some pretty exclusive company right now.
Yeah, it's we've been really, really fortunate. 2, our guys have been really, really diligent, and we're really proud of that. I told you, we talked about it. We had it was a long day today, and
when you talk about the film session being like upwards, you were not.
Yeah, maybe it was maybe an hour and a half, and then
that's longer than normal, right?
And then we had a long practice.
Yeah,
and the guys are hungry for it. Like, they're not. Of course, we're you just want to fix things, right? And these guys know they still have in the tank. But we started out the meeting by talking about, listen, we're in an unbelievable spot. These guys have earned themselves a top 30 position by every metric that matters in the country, terrain that we've seen one time in the last decade here at BYU, like we're in a great position. This is a really, really talented team. You posted, thank you for the information, because I really get all my analytics from you, but as you posted today, in the four kind of most important things, offensive and defensive efficiency, offensive and defensive effective field goal percentage, we're one of four teams that's balanced enough to be in the top 50 in the country in all four of those categories. So what these guys are doing is extraordinary. We should feel really good about that. But it's time right now where the teams that are going to put together really special seasons are going to take a big step forward. And the teams that are going to have good seasons are just going to kind of stay where they are. Everyone's progressed through the course of the season, and it's time for us to take a big step. And our guys they just want it so bad. And so that's our goal. Our goal is to take another big step forward. And today was terrific progress. So we're grateful to the Zags for exposing things we need to continue to work on.
You've alluded to that top 30 positioning. That'll take us to our resume check right now, where we see that in a lot of the most important metrics, BYU has that solid top 30 positioning right now. And we're going to compare it to where BYU was when we last did the show last Tuesday to see that in essentially all of them, you're up by a decent margin. And this is a great place to be right now. It's a tournament-worthy resume right now.
Yeah, for sure, and we feel good about that. And of course, that's a priority for us, is having a chance to go play and go make some progress and get something done in the tournament. We want so badly to be there, and we have a couple weeks of crucially, vitally important work to do. And the way we're going to get that done is we're going to keep getting better every day. And I was proud of our guys' focus today.
Bracketology update, and these things update almost daily. And you see yourself in that 8-9 seed territory, somewhere in the 30s on the S curve. Again, a good spot to be. It says that you're comfortable. And of course, you mentioned the big step forward the team can still take. There's room to move right now.
Yes, there is. And we also have a ceiling. Like we have a ceiling that we haven't come close to yet. And so that's exciting. It means we can get better, and we got a good locker room to do it.
All right, that is our first segment of tonight's show, wrapping it up from the last week. And, we're waiting for what's to come next. We'll hit that in the next segment as well. For your day-to-day Cougar Sports play-by-play, watch BYU Sports Nation with Spencer Linton and Jerem Jordan. Weekdays at noon Eastern on BYUtv and BYU Radio. Tomorrow, the guys will chat with new BYU offensive line coach Daryl Funk. When we come back, Deep Blue profiling Gideon Geroge. And later, we'll chat with Connor Harding live. This is BYU Basketball with Mark Pope.
BYU Basketball with Mark Pope is brought to you by Siegfried and Jensen, helping Utah families for over 30 years. Intermountain Healthcare, always here for you. Mountain America Credit Union, guiding you forward. Smith's, fresh for everyone. And by Deseret News.
Welcome back to BYU Basketball with Mark Pope, presented by Siegfried and Jensen. Well, with the season-ending schedule somewhat in flux after this week's postponements with St. Mary's and San Diego and a previous postponement with San Francisco, let's see exactly where the WCC teams all stack up right now. It's Know the Foe, presented by Qualtrics. We take a look at our WCC standings. And again, Coach, we are struck by just the great variance in number of games and number of conference games played, and it's all over the place right now.
Yeah, it's amazing. Like you look at Santa Clara at 3-2, and they were supposed to play Thursday, Saturday. It looks like they're going to lose both their Thursday and Saturday game too. And so it's just it's been super challenging for everybody. But you can't. You just got to keep hitting it hard and keep trying to win games, and things will work out for themselves.
What do you know about what the league plans to do or would plan to do relative to seeding for a conference tournament if the number of games played and results are unbalanced? What do you do? Yeah,
so we kind of passed the threshold a week ago, maybe a week or 10 days ago, where there was no way that we were going to play an equal number of games. It just became impossible. And so at that point, they started looking at other metrics they talked about win percentage, they talk about net ranking, and they've kind of gone back and forth. But you just can't use, everything is non-traditional. So for seeding in the tournament, you just can't use just straight up record anymore.
I was talking with one of Gonzaga's assistant coaches before the game last night, and he said, the time's going to come where, teams in the league have to address what's best for 10 teams. What's best for the top one or number of teams in terms of how this thing all shakes out? We're going to have to know, somewhat soon on this, I would think.
Yeah, and it's like everything's on the fly. I mean, we were up late last night and then early this morning trying to schedule games for Thursday across the country. So everything is kind of happening. It's really dynamic and fluid and exciting, and I suspect that we'll probably, even when we don't have COVID, we'll want to continue on this way for the foreseeable future, just so we can keep everybody interested.
No, I'm a creature of habit. I like my routines, and they're all over the place this year.
Me too.
Well, it was last Thursday that BYU set, as we mentioned, a new program record for largest away victory margin against a Division I opponent in that 105-60 win at Portland. It was the first BYU start for Gideon Geroge, who proved that night what he's been proving since arriving stateside, and that is he's a special player and person, as we learn in tonight's episode of Deep Blue, presented by America First Credit Union.
Gideon comes from a place with no power, no running water. He's got those big shoulders because he carried 10-gallon buckets of water to the well every week. He slept outside most of the time because it was too hot in the house. He's probably had malaria more times than he can count.
His breakthrough moment, he heard that there was this kind of basketball tryout. He had to get on a bus and try, and it's not like a bus like we know.
First day the camp happens, and he definitely stands out as just a great kid. Second day, still really good, but kind of tired. It's 100 degrees out, and these kids are playing, 6 hours on a broken concrete court with busted rims. Come to find out, some of the people that were on the ground that were supposed to be helping us from Oweary had charged the kids to play in the camp and hadn't told anybody. And so they took all of the money that Gideon and his friends and some other people that had come to this camp that they were supposed to use for staying somewhere and eating. His ability to get through something like that, to continue to show up and give 100% and never complained, right? We found out about it because of somebody else, not him. None of the other kids said a word. They were just grateful for the opportunity to be there, even if that meant sleeping outside, being chased by the police, and not eating for days.
He doesn't allow his situation define him. No matter what he finds himself, he just keep walking.
He's an individual that understands what he wants. He showed out at the camp and was the #1 player in the camp.
When we kind of figured out that, there's potential here for this kid to go to college, he'd been denied a visa 5 or 6 times already.
Because it does cost a lot of money to get these interviews. So I think it costs close to about $500. $500 is a lot of money in America compared to Nigeria. His father probably makes about $100 a month. So just imagine, so it's like a 4 or 5 month salary just to get an interview.
Anytime I want to quit, I don't know what's inside me that keep pushing me to keep going, because I believe that I think there's something out there better for me than in Nigeria. So that's why I keep applying. I just have that faith that one day I'm going to get a visa and I'm going to share my story out there to encourage people to keep pushing and never to give up.
A kid with no organized basketball experience for the most part, that grew up playing on a dirt court with a plywood backboard and basketballs with no grips and a lot of times no shoes. Showed up at New Mexico Junior College and won Freshman of the Year in arguably the hardest league in all of junior college basketball. And I think people are seeing at BYU now that coming out in him.
Gideon Geroge. He averaged 14.5 points last year at New Mexico Junior College. He shot 50% from the field.
Officially like to present this crown for King of the Glass this morning to our good friend Gideon Geroge. Let's go!
Character, his personality, his work ethic, his skill, right? All these things that, he's got more ability in his little finger than most people have in their whole body, and not even just basketball ability, but ability to overcome and adapt and things like that.
So when I get to America, I went to one of my teammates' room back there in New Mexico at the dorms.
He looked in the trash and saw a pair of shoes and was like,
What is happening? You're throwing those away? And I was like, yeah, they're a little worn out, and sometimes my feet get sore if I wear them. He's like, can I have them?
I just thank God because of his grace and his mercy towards us and his love. And my parents are hardworking. They always do their best to provide for us all the time. So That's it, man. Growing up, it wasn't that easy.
And so from that day, Gideon started collecting all the shoes to send back to his home country. And then as you dig into the story more, those were the shoes that he was wearing growing up. He was getting shoes from the same organization that were being shipped from the United States to Africa, and they enabled him to actually go on a court and play the way he learned how to play.
Gideon was able to benefit from Time Out for Africa, and the fact that he's made it to the United States, he feels like he has to give back.
Shoes that I didn't wear, or any of his teammates, women's basketball, track, cross country. I mean, he just started asking. You know, we had a game to where you get in free if you bring your shoes.
He's still figuring out which end is up when he's, you know, suddenly thrust into this college environment in America, and he's thinking of everybody else back home that doesn't have the same opportunity. And so we think about, you know, a shoe drive is like, oh, that's great, these kids have shoes. But what we don't think about is that the highest transmission of disease in Africa is through their feet because they don't have proper shoes. And so it's more than I have shoes to wear to school, I have shoes to wear to church, I have shoes to wear on a basketball court. It's actually protecting the health and livelihoods of those people over there. And when he hit the ground in New Mexico, that was one of the first things that came to mind. Not, great, I'm in America, I have all these resources, look at all the things that are available to me now. He looked at it from the standpoint of, look at all the resources that are available for me to help somebody else.
So the fact that, you know, he's benefited from us, now we're benefiting from him, because the program is getting, you know, a lot more, you know, known in the area just because of these donations. Encourages the kids to play more and be successful. So that's definitely making an impact.
That's someone that gets it, right? That's someone that gets that things are bigger than him.
And whether he never makes another basket again doesn't matter, right? It's Gideon Geroge is going to have an impact on this planet because of who he is, not because of who he is as a basketball player. And that's special. And that's something that, you know, has definitely changed me, and he changes everybody else that he interacts with.
Well, for a young man, like how much he's done already.
Come on. I mean, it's just amazing. Like these stories that these young men have, and where Gideon comes from and who he is just remarkable. And it just is so beautiful that all of us are getting to know him better. And you know, at some point there's going to be fans in the gym and we'll really get to know him better. And he just is, he is 100% as good as he seems and better.
That's exactly what I was thinking as I was watching that. You know, whether it's a chance to sign an autograph or shake a hand or storm a court, to embrace Gideon Geroge. The fans haven't had that chance yet. Yep. And yeah, we get glimpses of him, and but that's going to be one of the best things about getting it back to, you know, normal, is to have the chance for these fans to kind of embrace this guy who I think they all want to, right?
Yeah, and he is, I mean, it's in some ways, none of us can relate to his life experience, right? But he's got such a big heart and such a kind heart, and he lets you into his world, and he kind of lets you feel who he is and what he's about, and that kind of that bond that he certainly has formed with all of his teammates who love him so dearly, and the staff, and it's going to continue to grow with fans. It's going to be really special, and he's going to leave his fingerprints on BYU, and he's going to be remembered here forever, not just for what he does on the court, but what he's going to accomplish off the court and how he's going to affect the world. And if I can add, you know, this Brandon Goebel, who was running the camp in Africa and actually brought Gideon Geroge over, there's a lot of people that are kind of like working in that area of just trying to, you know, he runs a JUCO Advocate, which is really the organization that's taken over all of junior college basketball. And sometimes you run into people that are agenda-driven and trying to kind of work on things for their own person. And this Brandon Goebel is one of the best human beings you will ever meet in your life. And when he talks, he actually means it. When he says this is about providing these young people with opportunities, he means it. And so you just think about, you know, you got to see three people that were intimately involved in Gideon's life so far, and he's been also really blessed to have extraordinary people, none more so than Brandon Goebel, who's just an extraordinary person and is doing unbelievable work for our world, like literally changing young men's lives. It's pretty awesome to watch.
Another awesome deep blue and a great guy. Good stuff. All right, let's head to break, and we'll tell you that right now, on the other side of this BYUtv app, the 12th-ranked women's volleyball team is playing Gonzaga. BYU won the first set 25-17. Gonzaga, though, just took set 2, 25-22. That's a live look in over at Smith Fieldhouse. BYU back at it versus Gonzaga again tomorrow, 6 Eastern on the BYUtv app. After this break, we get the locker room scoop on Alex Barcello in tonight's Cougar Q&A. And we'll take your questions from social media for Coach Pope. This is BYU Basketball with Mark Pope.
BYU Basketball with Mark Pope is brought to you by Siegfried and Jensen, helping Utah families for over 30 years. America First Credit Union, we're here to help. The BYU Store, official outfitter of BYU fans everywhere. Zions Bank, we haven't forgotten who keeps us in business. And by Qualtrics.
Cougars in the pros. Cougars in the pros. Everybody knows the Cougars in the pros. Presented by Deseret News. Jimmer Fredette, 33 points for the Shanghai Sharks in a win for the Sharks last Friday. Eric Mika playing in Serbia. Brandon Davies for Barcelona and Elijah Bryant for Maccabi Tel Aviv. You see their most recent results. And stateside, Jake Toolson and Yoli Childs prepping for the NBA's G League bubble at Disney World this week. The two former teammates facing off on Wednesday with Toolson representing the Salt Lake City Stars and Childs with the Erie Bayhawks. You've seen those two guys on the floor together, probably in some practice situations. How do you think that's going to turn out if they end up with each other?
Man, I can't wait. Wednesday is like Christmas morning. I can't wait. I can't wait to watch. They both had scrimmages on Saturday. Jake has been playing the point, which he was so excited to tell me because the whole time here and
was he lobbying?
He's like, I should be playing the point. He's like, finally, I go to the league, and now those guys are smart enough to play me at the point. But he knocked down 4 threes in their scrimmage, and Yoli started in his scrimmage at the 4, and there's also already been some banter about who's going to actually not let the other person get any shots. So it's just a perfect way for them to start their NBA, their professional careers. I'm really excited for both of them.
That's awesome. Each week on The Pope Show, we get to know the guys by talking to their teammates. And tonight, we get the good word on Alex Barcello. It's Cougar Q&A presented by Zions Bank. We haven't forgotten who keeps us in business.
Something that's really special about Alex is he's always making his teammates better.
Great dude to talk to, great leader, great character.
Alex is super upbeat, super positive all the time.
One of the smartest players I've ever played with.
He was the guy the coach were like, this is the man you got to call right here. He went through this exact same process, so I feel like we really relate.
Whatever he puts his heart into, he's going to give 110%. If it's basketball, if it's school, if it has to do with a certain lady, he's always going to give 110%.
Constantly in guys' ears, he's hyping them up, talking them up. He's always thinking about the game, always talking about it.
I go to him for everything. Stuff on the court, stuff off the court. He's the person I talk to.
Man, he's like a mentor, I think, to all of us in a way.
He's honestly one of my best friends. He's just a good dude. He means well to everyone.
He's just really an energetic guy and super nice, and I love laughing with him and making jokes with him off the court. And when we're in the locker room, it's just fun being with him.
It's an all-out war when you're up against him.
He's funny. He cracks jokes. He's still got that intensity to him, but he's just he's a nice guy.
He always has that competitive edge, but then as soon as practice is over, he's going to be your best friend again. I think that's huge. I think that's something that's hard to do.
He's a great leader and a great friend, that's for sure.
All right, and Alex Barcello, clearly the leader of this BYU basketball team from the get-go.
And it's pretty great because he wasn't designated as a leader. We didn't name him the captain. We didn't have some meeting and say, hey, Alex Barcello is going to run this deal. He just earned that trust from his teammates, and jumped in full-fledged, and unanimously everybody on the team would point to him as the guy that they want to follow and that they believe in and that they trust, and they know how invested he is in them. And it's really great when that happens organically. That's really the only way it can happen, and it certainly happened for this team this year.
He scored 20 or more now in 2 of his last 3 games as well, picking up the scoring pace right now.
Yep, and it's the most important thing he does. He actually, I thought one of his best performances of the entire season was at Portland, where he had 12 points, and his stat line wasn't screaming at you from the page, but he was so complete and dominating every single facet of the game that's more important than what's on the stat sheet. So he's been playing great basketball, and that's what seniors do, and that's what leaders do down the stretch.
All right, that's our Cougar Q&A. Time now for some social media Q&A for Coach Pope, presented by Smith's, fresh for everyone. And our first question asks Coach Pope, what do you think of Mark Few's recommendation, given after the game last night, to have an abbreviated WCC tournament in Spokane with top teams in the WCC?
Well, far be it from me to question anything that Mark Few says, because he seems to have all the answers. It drives me crazy. In fact, we were talking after the game. I mean, he's just such a good person. It makes me so angry. And I told him, we were talking about some issues that have kind of come up within the league, and then we finished it. He's walking away. He's like, I told him, I'm like, I love you so much, and I hate you, because he keeps kicking our tail. But I don't know. We'll see. That's all going to work itself out. You know what I like? I like the fact that we're having every possible conversation in real time, so that nothing's going to take us by surprise, because we're coming down to the end here, and we're going to have to make some decisions, and hopefully everyone's kind of churning through the ideas and the thought process and going to figure it out.
And the good news is Zag's clearly in position. You're in position. WCC is kind of staking that reputation as an annual multi-bid entrant in this thing. And
we have 2 teams that are squarely in right now, and that's important for the league. I mean, it's important financially for the league, and so we'll figure out the best way to proceed, and it'll happen. But Coach Few does swing a big stick in this league, so a lot of times when he says something, it's kind of like that's what's going to happen. So we'll see.
Let's go to question 2 from Steve Larson. Under what circumstances would you consider using extended pressure before desperation time? It seems this might be a good use of depth, and you have many players who would do well in applying pressure. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's that's the way I grew up playing. That's the way I played in college. I think it's found a little bit of a space in college basketball right now with just a few teams. But it's something, I think, to be effective at it, you have to be 100% committed. Otherwise, it just becomes like a punch, like a little trinket that you can throw out there once in a while. And someday, hopefully in the near rather than the farther future, I would love to play that way. I think it's a great way to play. I don't know if you can do it in college now. I'm not sure if you can do it consistently, but it sure is a fun way to play, man. It's a fun way to watch basketball, and I would be excited if we get there someday.
Do the current metrics you alluded to earlier, though, indicate that the plan you've got right now is working for this group?
Yeah, I mean, this has been the best defensive unit that BYU's had for a decade, metrics-wise, and what these guys are doing on the defensive end has been really good. Now, can we get better? I think so. And it's something super intriguing to kind of add a pressure component to the game. And then, maybe that's something we'll be able to look to more as we move forward.
Okay. On the latest BYUSN right now, it's a 3-for-3 special. Watch it on the BYU Sports Nation social media channels. Coming up, Connor Harding joins the show, and later we ask the weekly question, what happened? This is BYU Basketball with Mark Pope. Welcome back to BYU Basketball with Mark Pope, presented by Siegfried and Jensen. Well, tonight's player guest is as consistent as they come. After all, he's averaged the same amount of points in all 3 of his seasons. He's a baller. He's married to a baller as well. His name is Connor Harding, and Connor joins us live from the BYU Basketball Annex this evening. Hello, Connor, and first of all, can you testify to the length of today's film and practice sessions for us, please?
Yes, it was a long one today, but it was well needed for our team.
I always think, like a hard practice, just to be competitive is always good. So, competitive practice is better than any other practice you can possibly have. But it was a long one.
How would you characterize the guys' response after a tough one last night when they came in today?
I just think just realizing our potential. We lost and we did a lot of things that we haven't done this year, offensively, defensively, and especially against a very good Gonzaga team. And I think Coach said in the locker room, and he said it better than anyone else, we have a lot left in the tank. And I believe that because I don't believe we've played a game all 40 minutes yet as a team collectively. And so when that happens, it's going to be all fireworks and it's going to be fun. So we haven't done that yet, and I believe we're about there. There's just like this point we have to break, and we just can't let it break us.
What do you lean on Connor for, Coach Pope, primarily?
Wow. I mean, we've talked about this a lot, right? What an incredible leader he is for this team. And Connor is maybe not the vocal leader of this team, but in terms of like the character and the commitment to this team, he is the leader, and there's not a close second. He brings an unbelievable consistency to what we do. He's contributed to this team from every different kind of role that you could play. We have no chance of being where we are, none at all, without Connor Harding doing what he's done for us this season. He's been incredible.
Connor, how would you describe your evolving role with this year's team?
I think the biggest thing is my basketball IQ and being able to teach other players when they come off the sideline or in practice or in the game, and just getting them mentally prepared and being able to understand like our principles on the defensive side, offensive side. Playing quarterback, it obviously helped me to, like, if Pope draws up a play, I kind of know all the moving pieces and where people are going to be. And so just yelling at them just to go over here in the corner, the spacing, and just be able to let them like play their game while I help them out. And so that's one aspect of it. And then this year, I think I've been a little more vocal, like before every single game, they're like, Connor, like, what do you have to say to us? And I think I have their attention most of the time. And, people trust me. I trust my teammates. And so, a team built on trust can go a long way.
Coach Pope, how do players really react to starter versus reserve when it comes right down to it? And why is Connor a guy that's been able to function equally well in both situations?
Well, I mean, on this team, starting and coming off the bench doesn't really matter. I mean, most of the time our guys coming off the bench score as many or more points and play as many or more minutes than the guys that are starting. So it's an unbelievable luxury, and Connor has actually paved the way for that to be the truth on this team by embracing both roles in such a way that it doesn't seem like it matters to him, right? He just wants to win. So, you talk about the different ways that he's led, and that's been an extraordinary one. Connor, I got a question for you.
Yeah.
Okay, because one of the beautiful gifts that Connor gives to me as a coach is I can be really hard on Connor. Sometimes I can actually say what I want to say to other guys on the team by yelling directly at Connor, and that's a real gift to have. So, Connor, I want you to be serious because we're all family here. Everybody watching the show. You can be totally straight up and honest, and I'm super curious about the answer. What moment this season or last season were you most, like, to your heart and soul, most angry with me?
I think it was last season. It was during two-a-days, and Blaze just went off on us. And you turned to me and you just started going at me. You started going at my friends, at my family. You even said something about Paisley, and everyone was like, "Oh my goodness!" And I walked off the court, and I was mad. But I think that's the time where
Yeah, I was most twisted up for sure.
I am first of all glad that Connor made time for us at this moment, because Paisley, his wife, former Paisley Johnson, now Paisley Harding, is playing. She's live right now. And the BYU women's team is actually playing Pepperdine. We'll give you Paisley's line here in a second. Coach, off the air, I think you alluded to smack that might be talked. How could there be smack talk about Paisley, Connor?
Oh, man, I can't talk smack. She's too good. She does one thing. I want people to look this up, but I want to see who has the most records for charges in a BYU career, because I think she's up there. She took 5 in one game. I think she averages around like 2 a game, and that's just absolutely amazing. So, you know, she does a good job. She shoots the ball well. She has a high IQ, but someone needs to look up the charges.
Well, I can't go charges tonight, but I can give you the stat sheet she's filled up so far. BYU's up at Pepperdine 47-41 at the beginning of the fourth quarter. Paisley 11 points, 4 rebounds, 5 assists.
That's who she is, right there, filling up the stat sheet.
You guys have that in common, man. You guys both do that well.
Connor, thanks for the time tonight. Always good to be with you, and we'll let Coach Pope wrap it up. Yeah,
hey, listen, Connor, I'll say this again publicly, man. All the Cougar Nation is so grateful for you, and your fingerprints and DNA are all over this team, and we're all getting to enjoy watch you guys do your work, and there's a lot more work to be done, but we're super grateful for you, man.
That's true, and I just want Cougar Nation to know it doesn't matter how you win as long as we win. That's all that matters. So, ugly or not, I just like winning.
Hey, next time we have you on the show, Jaron, can we have some football highlights? Connor's the quarterback. I've never seen the highlights. We got to run that out, man. Let's go.
For people who thought that Taysom was the best Idaho quarterback,
highlights, they're better.
Connor, thanks again. Have a great night.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
All right, that's Connor Harding. Great to have him. Friday and Saturday at 9 Eastern on BYUtv. Watch the top-ranked men's volleyball team led by National Player of the Week, Gabby Garcia-Fernandez, host MPSF rival Pepperdine on BYUtv both of those nights. As we go to break, here's this week's trivia question presented by the BYU Store. Tyler Haws is BYU's all-time scoring leader, total points. Who's BYU's all-time leader in points per game with at least 75 games played? The answer coming up next. Trivia time on the Pope Show. Tyler Haws is BYU's all-time scoring leader. That's total points. But in points per game, who's BYU's all-time leader with at least 75 games played? The answer is Danny Ainge. Almost 21 points per game. Rare air for Mr. Ainge. All right, we've reached the end of the show, where each week our production staff reaches into the wide world of video and social media for the best of the rest. A little feature we like to call...
What happened?
What happened anyway? What happened? All right, this is, they say you've got to be your own best cheerleader sometimes, and that's Trevin Nell. He's like, yeah, I feel good about myself, having just made a 3 from the top of the key. He's the Stuart Smalley of the BYU basketball program.
I think Trev was flexing on the way down the floor so he would look, after he made the shot, he's like, I know the camera's coming back to me.
All right, this is agility. Keep the dribble alive by Brandon Averett, just making sure Caleb Lohner doesn't get in his way.
We need to see more of this.
This is a standard agility drill in most practices.
Finding a way. This Brandon Averett is a really phenomenal athlete.
By the way, he got to 1,000 career points last night. We should have talked more about that with BA. It's fantastic. We're just showing this because the Fu Manchu action going on here with the headband, no less.
Yep. And I'll tell you what, he's a heck of a player, man. He really took it to us a little bit. He's a terrific talent and plays the game the right way.
All right, visual aid time. This may have arrived in the mailbox of folks over the last week, and this is Coach Pope for BYU. He is a slam dunk here at BYU. Y Magazine and Jeff Call doing a nice feature on you.
A really interesting choice for the cover. So we did a couple hours worth of photos for the cover shoot, but they had to pick the one where you couldn't really see my face.
You're obscured by water.
They didn't want to scare anybody away.
We had this gem as well from the interior of the magazine as well.
Happy days, man.
Hijinks alert. All right, we had a tweet from a fellow named Joe Nelson who said, he made an observation. He said, Spencer Johnson looks like one of the soldiers in the movie 1917. We thought the same thing. We thought, well, how would that really turn? Oh, looks just like that. He
does, man.
Yeah.
He carries himself that way. He does everything. He's working on perfection, and so he's a great leader on our team.
All right, and we're 2 days ago from the 17-year anniversary of Coach Robinson doing this for Stanford against Arizona. Fantastic stuff. Never gets tired of seeing that. And then lastly, we're going to close out. It's not basketball, but it's this. Matty Allen with a triple dig situation. Coach Pope, 1 and 2 and 3. You've got to love that. Wow.
Unbelievable. I mean, how great are our volleyball teams?
So many programs at BYU. It's going nuts right now.
How great is the name Gabby Garcia Fernandez?
Also great.
Come on.
We have 5 seconds. You want to say goodnight?
Yes, I do. I want to say goodnight. Good night.